Tonight I'm going to, as I have been doing, I'm going to talk about the paramitas, one of them, actually. And I'll tell you a bit about what that means. And we have a range of people's experience here, and some of you have heard me talk about this before. And the background to the paramitas, I do pretty much the same each time. There's 6 of these, but I like to repeat it all because not everybody is familiar with what this is. And I want to really dedicated to having this not be arcane or difficult to understand. I want it to be immediate and usable. So if anything is not clear, feel free to put up a balloon, and I'll try to back up. Paramita is a Sanskrit word that translates roughly as perfections. Noble character qualities, generally associated with enlightened beings. Another way to say that is, these are descriptions of how to be a Buddha. And the secret of all of this that we're doing is that we are already Buddhas. There's nothing else we could possibly be. Or we just don't know. We just don't know. Speaking for myself, I'm caught up in all of my drama and my stories and the things that are difficult in my life, all that, and so I miss it most of the time. In Buddhism and in Zen in particular, we have endless lists. And again, those of you who've heard me talk about this, I've said this before. We have 3 of these and 4 of those and 6 of these and 8 of those and 10 of these and 10,000 of those. And it goes on forever. There's a tendency, perhaps, especially when we're just beginning, to feel like, oh my gosh, I've got to memorize all this stuff. Not only that, I've got to be able to make some sense of it. What's it all mean? And how do I use it? I really encourage you not to do that. If you're just beginning to step onto this path of Zen practice, there's plenty of time for all of that. And the paramita that we're going to talk about tonight is really what we need to be spending our time doing. And the rest of it comes along in bits and pieces. You know, those folks who have a bit of a grasp of these things, whether it's the precepts of the paramitas or the 4 noble truths or the Eightfold Path or the 10,000 things, it's because people have been doing this for a long time, and it absorbs. I wish there was a better word than perfections as a translation, because that really, I think, can set up a tension or a duality, like, well, I'm not perfect, so I need to do this thing so that one day I can finally be perfect. And nothing can be further from the truth. We are perfect. And as Suzuki Roshi said, we could all use a little work. So it's both. So these are practices. They're tools that we use to wake up, to forget our small self, for me to forget all the stuff all my stories, and the things that are troublesome or challenging in my life, and just to appreciate what's actually going on. Just exactly as it is. We really want things to be different, but they're perfect as they are. They may not look that way. Rounding up brown American citizens on the streets of LA doesn't look too perfect. On some level it is, and I need to resist it. So this is a practice. These are like, I like the metaphor of mirrors. These are like 6 mirrors that we can look into and see ourselves. And as such, this practice of, well, Zen practice in general, but certainly practicing with the paramitas, we're never finished. In English, these 6 perfections are generosity, ethical conduct, patience, joyful effort, meditation, which is the one we're going to talk about tonight, and understanding. Understanding is, in Sanskrit, is probably the one you've heard of the most, Prajna Paramita. And next month we'll talk about that. But tonight we'll talk about the 5th of these, which is called Dhyana Paramita, or the perfection of meditation. And there are so many wise people out there, so forgive me, I love to borrow from people. This is from a talk at Upaya Zen Center in Santa Fe about 12 years ago by Sensei Robert Thomas. And he said, the purpose of meditation is simply learning how to be a human being in this body right here, right now. We could almost stop there. And he says, according to Dogen, and we've all heard this many times, to study the way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. And to forget the self is to be enlightened by all things of the universe. Or sometimes we say the 10,000 things. And he goes on to say, we study ourselves in this moment, moment after moment. We don't sit zazen to gain enlightenment. It took me about 20 years to figure that one out. We sit without any notion of a gaining idea whatsoever. Secondly, when we do zazen, he says, we do not do it by ourselves. We do zazen right in the middle of our lives. We do zazen with everything around us, joining the trees, the rocks, the blossom on the peach tree, and even the cars out on 13th Street. The Zen Peacemakers, we had another session today with my friend Roshi Genjo Marinello. He's a Rinzai teacher, and he's every week he's talking us through the Zen ox pictures, another somewhat arcane practice. But he always starts with the meditation, and I love it. It's a short guided meditation. And I love what he says every time. And I won't do the whole thing, but just one part of it was, sit comfortably but steadily, as if there was a taproot going down into the ground below you and into the center of the earth. And there was another line of some sort coming off the top of your head, up through the ceiling into the sky, out into space. And sit in the middle of that. We do zazen with everything around us, joining the trees, the rocks, the blossom on the peach tree, and even the cars out on 13th Street. This is Dhyana Paramita. Dhyana is a Sanskrit word that means meditation. In Chinese it's Chan, in Japanese it's Zen. We all know this. Shōun in Korean, Tien in Vietnamese. They're all the same. So when we say Zen meditation, it's actually redundant. That would be meditation. And Zen is the meditation school within Buddhism. It's actually rather tiny in the world. compared to the full population of Buddhist practitioners of all stripes. Roshi, Daido Loori wrote this, and some of you practiced with him. In the cold, damp shelters of our primitive ancestors, lit only by the flickering of a campfire, at day's end there was a time for recollection and stillness that would help to fuel the next day's events. Since the beginning of human history, the still point has served as the birthplace of all of our activity. Virtually every creature on this great earth takes the backward step of quieting down and entering this still point. Birds, beasts, bugs, fish, all seem to find time in their daily existence to relax and recreate, to bring forth the flower from what Whitman called the seed of perfection. So the Zen school, 300 or 400 AD, didn't invent meditation. Buddhists didn't. 2,500 years ago. The Hindus didn't before that. It's been with us forever. It's part of our human wiring, our human landscape. Some of what I'm talking about, I'll just share this. I took from a book by Norman Fischer, which if you're interested in this, I highly recommend it. It's called The World Could Be Otherwise. And it's his really profound and really in-depth study of the paramitas. And I believe it was him that said that Dhyana, or meditation, Dhyana, Paramita, perfection of meditation, is actually the foundation for the first 4 paramitas, or perfections, that is still non-reactive mind is necessary to express and to realize those first 4, being generosity, morality, patience, and vigor. That they all come from that. They all come from the still point, as Daido says. One might say that those first 4 perfections, which we've talked about over the last 4 months or so, are more terrestrial. Or are more universal, and they don't require special skills or knowledge. There are various techniques for doing meditation. There are numerous techniques. They take practice, they take training. Patience, less so. Patience requires us to just keep trying and to make mistakes over and over and over again and stand up and go again. But meditation takes us into a different realm, into a spiritual realm, requiring a kind of effort that is new to most of us. Not rooted in our rational thinking minds. It challenges us to let go and trust something that's unfamiliar and unseen. Which is, I find interesting, because I think we all nod when we say, well, human beings have been doing this forever. At the end of the day, around the campfire, or first thing in the morning. But somehow it doesn't come that naturally. Especially for us that are more modern and have really we've really invested in our rational processes. They're addictive. A Chinese master, Hongzhu Zhengzhui, said, a person of the way fundamentally does not dwell anywhere. The white clouds are fascinated with the Green Mountains foundation. The bright moon cherishes being carried along with the flowing water. the clouds part, and the mountain appears. The moon sets and the waters cool. Every bit of autumn contains vast interpenetration without bounds. There are far too many various meditation practices for us to do a responsible review of all that here tonight. And that's not the point of this discussion. They may be worth mentioning, and I will mention them a little bit. Some of them would include calming meditation. In the Christian traditions, there are, help me with the word.
Centering prayer.
Centering prayer. Vipassana and insight are their own type of meditation. Concentrating on a single syllable or a phrase. Concentrating on the breath. Concentrating on various places in the body. Or some that we're a little more familiar with, concentrating on a koan. This vast curriculum, hundreds and hundreds of stories over the years, a while back, that we use for training. Concentrating on emotions such as loving kindness, joy, or compassion, equanimity, or just sitting. And we won't go too far into any of all of this because it could be its own thing. As many of you here know, when we first began, we teach what in Japanese is called susakan, which is counting the breath. And I don't want to embarrass Gakyo, but Gakyo offers once every 3 months in our Enter Here zazen kai format, basic meditation instruction, and that is counting the breath, susakan, and she's very good at it. So, and we'll be doing this on Saturday. So join us if you can. And it's funny, you think, I've been doing this a little while, and you think that a basic instruction in meditation, you can kind of put that behind you after a while. Like, I don't need to do that anymore. But for two reasons. One is that it's Gakyo doing it, and she's really good at it. But the other one is, it's impossible to start over too many times. So I keep going. And it's still. So with each of these, we focus on the object of our concentration. We come back to it over and over again. And because of the nature of our minds, again, I'm talking with Genjo Marinello today. I mean, he's a Rinzai Roshi, he's been practicing 50 years. And we were talking about this. And he said, there isn't a single meditation period that I can get through where my mind doesn't wander off someplace. And I thought, yes! I'm okay. I'd love to hear that from you. We focus on the object of our concentration, we come back to it over and over and over again. And a funny thing happens with that. I've noticed, just speaking for myself. In a way, those are little failures. So my Geoff comes up, and my Geoff doesn't want to fail. My Geoff wants to be good and succeed. So I get to, each time I lose my focus or wander off or think about my insurance claim on my car or whatever it might be, I have to forgive myself and try again. And that's a subtle little thing, but it's extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. When you do that, I don't know, 10,000 times, it softens you. You're easier on yourself, and you're easier on other people as well. So to stick with this, we need enormous faith, patience, diligence, and ideally outer support from a community. And here we are. This process of refocusing, recommitting, retaking that backward step is endless. Again, it was just lovely to hear Geoff say that today. I thought, we get to do this our whole life. We're never done. So when we do this, we face resistance in the form of clinging to thoughts and ideas, or aversion to various things, like get me out of here right now. Worry, laziness, doubt, or questioning the efficacy of what we're doing. This is stupid. I'm probably not even doing it right. Nothing's happening. Why am I doing this? These are all self-generated. They're not real. They're generated by that aggregate of ideas and projections and attachments that I call myself, that I call Geoff. When I square up again, sit up straight, take another calming breath, and exhale down into my aura. That goes away. And I know everybody here is familiar with all of these distractions. Perhaps ad nauseum. But what happens over time, and this is somewhat related to what I mentioned about having some patience for ourselves, they still keep happening. But they appear kind of humorous. Sometimes sad, always intensely human, and always intimately part of my life. There you go, you're doing that thing again. You silly old man. And it's not quite so crushing. It's just funny. And then we start over again. Paying attention to breathing, especially down low in the belly, or the hara. The hara is, it's not the same for everybody, but a couple inches below your navel and halfway back through the core of your body. And it's an energy center, and some of us sit there. That's where we sit. So breathing there is intimately accessible. Breathing is one of the things that we do. We don't choose to do it. It happens. I can't very well pay attention to my circulation of blood or digestion. I mean, there's lots of things going on that I don't have to choose to do. And I don't have to choose to breathe, but I can be aware of it because it's right there. Concentrating on this one single point the still point, like Daido said. And doing that with calm consistency and patience, coming back, coming back, coming back, can be surprising. Can be experienced as well as expansive. In my notes, I have a little bit about shikantaza and about koan practice. I don't think I'm going to talk about that tonight. That gets a little bit specific. Another quote, Rujing, Chinese master, said, "Everywhere, turn around freely, not following conditions, not falling into classifications. Facing everything, let go and attain stability. Stay with that just as that. Stay with this just as this. That and this are mixed together with no discriminations as to their places." When we talk about these things, it can sound philosophical, or it can sound like ideas, or that we need to bring in some kind of maybe a construct, or don't forget about this aspect of it. And it's really important. I really want to encourage everybody to let that go. Zazen is entirely somatic. It's entirely body practice. We don't have to have a degree. We don't have to have read sutras. We don't have to have memorized any of these lessons. One of the most famous Chinese Zen masters, Wei Nan, was illiterate, couldn't read or write. And he was a brilliant Zen master. It's just a matter of trusting our bodies, trusting the wisdom of our bodies. Your dogs and your cats do it. When we're doing our meditation, we come face to face with three characteristics of existence: impermanence, no self, and unsatisfactoriness or suffering. This is part of my suffering. I have neuropathy and I can't feel my fingers. So I just have to patiently try to flip the pages. But these three may not be actually as gloomy as they might sound. Impermanence, no self, suffering. About that, Norman Fischer said, "It takes a bodhisattva to see that it makes perfect sense that if things arise and pass away at the same time, they don't actually exist. If they don't actually exist, they can't cease to exist. Hence, impermanence is permanence. And bodhisattvas know that if we are not the abiding selves that we think we are, we must be some other sort of selves that gloriously come and go in the great flow of impermanence, true selves. Bodhisattvas know that if we slough off false lives, we get true lives, no longer clinging exclusively to our pathetic, vulnerable non-selves. We become no one and everyone. And once bodhisattvas see and integrate the unsatisfactory nature of our lives in this broken world of partiality, they see that the pain and trouble inherent in alienated consciousness are exactly the pain and trouble we need to live this life of sorrow and healing together with everyone in a painful and gorgeous world. So unsatisfactoriness or suffering becomes joy. That's probably worth reading a number of times. That's a real mouthful. I won't do it. I won't read it again. In my notes after that paragraph, I just wrote one word. Wow. That's kind of a wow paragraph. In Zen practice, we're engaged with so much more than just a formal act of sitting. Everything we do is Zen. Nothing is left out. Just this and all of this. No gap, no duality, no me, and no that. In the discussion today with Genjo, the students we had a conversation time, and people were talking about Zen practice off the cushion. And our references like that usually always go to really nice things. Like I like to walk in the forest, and it's just so peaceful and Zen-like to sit by the stream. And all those are true. When I'm listening to a symphony, I really find myself connecting in the way that we're talking about here. And I think, and not to poo-poo that at all, because those are all wonderful. But I think our practice, this is just my perspective, I think our practice is also to experience that in a traffic jam. Or when things are not going so well for us. Because yes, it's that too. And I'd forgotten that I quoted Huinong in here. Beautiful expression of this in the Platform Sutra by Huinong. He's the 6th Zen patriarch in China. And as I said, he was illiterate. He was pounding rice in the kitchen, but very accomplished. And there was a poetry contest. So sixth ancestor, so this is 500, 600 BCE, something like that, I don't know. And the head monk, who was very esteemed and revered, offered this: the body is a Bodhi tree. The mind is like a standing mirror. Always try to keep it clean. Don't let it gather dust. And Huinong responded, but another monk had to write this, because Huinong couldn't write. And he wrote these words on the wall for him. He said, Bodhi doesn't have any trees. The mirror doesn't have a stand. Buddha nature is forever pure. Where did you get this dust? We can hear and feel the difference in these two expressions. Dogen makes the point that the Buddha and Bodhidharma did not meditate in order to become enlightened. They did so because they already were. As Sensei Thomas said in the beginning of this talk. Again, Norman Fischer says this: the body knows precisely how to live the truth of impermanence and permanence. Again, going back to somatic practice, trusting the body. It knows how to change moment by moment. It understands perfectly how things arise and pass away simultaneously, and it is fully capable of dying and mixing with other elements to continue its cosmic journey forever. So our practice of meditation offers us the opportunity and the challenge to have this kind of radical faith in our bodies and our lives. And that, to my way of thinking, that is extraordinarily radical, to trust our bodies, to be this deeply intimate. Like the translation of the title of the Shinshin Ming, faith or trust in heart-mind. It's so simple and so awe-inspiring. The backward step again, Dogen says, take the backward step and turn the light inward. Your body-mind of itself will drop off and your original face will appear. If you want to attain just this, immediately practice just this. One more from Norman Fischer. By definition, this practice is impossible. It's not much you've heard. It's impossible. There's literally nothing to it. Yet we can do it. Or rather, it can somehow occur, though we can't do it. When the mind becomes quiet, when it ceases to search for concentration or insight, or anything other than being in time, and it's willing to simply sit in the midst of the impossible ineffability of being alive, then this meditation is taking place. Body and mind drop away. No longer ours, we don't worry about them. Like the sun rising in the morning, our original face, our Buddha face, dawns. We touch it intimately with our body, breath, and awareness. And finally, I'll leave the last quote for Daido Roshi. He says, we all have the potential to live a fully deluded or fully awakened life. It's up to us to choose. This boundless Dharma is always present, whether we realize it or not. We should strive with all our might to keep it alive and vibrant. It is the most important thing we will ever do with our lives. So, I hope everybody stuck with that. Thank you for listening. And let's practice wholeheartedly and encourage one another in this way.